Hi, this is a reply to Trev's, if I can call you Trev, Trev's review of Walking Dead Season 2, Episode 12, Better Angels. It's my second reply to one of Trev's reviews. You can find his reviews at TrevShan2 here on YouTube. Trev, this time around, I don't have as much to disagree with. I actually agree with quite a lot of what you said, but I have a few differences with you that I hope are productive differences. The first thing I want to say is I really agree with you about this episode marking the end of a story arc, right? That it really is the end of a narrative arc, and as you said, it's interesting that it doesn't happen in the finale of the season. It happens beforehand, so there's room for things to really build to a horrendous conclusion at the end of this season. And one of the things you said is that, and I thought it was quite astute, is that the important narrative arc that's ending here is the one that connects Rick and Shane, and in so doing connects Rick to his former life, right? His former position of authority, his life back as the sheriff, this sort of thing. So I really agree with you that that's the end of an important story arc, an important turning point for Rick. I'd also say that actually, what you said about the end of the story arc makes perfect sense with what I was saying in my previous reply to you about Carl inching, sometimes sprinting, from the world of innocence to the world of experience, from his previous life into this fallen world. Because what I said in my last reply to you was that Carl has been making this transition, and he's inching toward killing somebody, and Dale's death is the kind of inching toward it because it isn't deliberate, although he still causes it and kind of admits that he's culpable for it. But now we see him deliberately kill. He deliberately shoots Shane, even though Shane is no longer Shane, he's dead. But that's another part of the end of a story arc. Carl has now turned the corner, I think, from innocence to experience. I think we'll still see aspects of that innocence. I think it's important to his character, just as some of Rick's goodness and emotion are important to his character, his status as the hero of the show rather than an anti-hero. But I agree, the end of a narrative arc, and I think a very powerful and effective one. I completely agree that it sucks to see Shane go. Shane was a fantastic character. I was at a party with some colleagues a couple of weeks ago, and I was exhorting them all to watch The Walking Dead. None of them had ever seen it. Most of them said zombies. And I said, no, it's about so much more than zombies. The zombies are like a delivery device for all the examinations of human relations, humanity, all these things that are going on in the show. And I gave Shane as an example. And I said, there's this great character, Shane, he's so complex. And Shane was an incredibly complex character. I mean, the way he moved between good and evil, and even the gray area between those, like shooting Otis. Shooting Otis is a very sort of morally troubling thing. I mean, how do you gauge that? I mean, it sucks to kill Otis or leave this, wound him so that the zombies will kill him, but needs of the little boy outweigh the needs of poor old fat Otis? Who knows? Very difficult to pin him down as a character sometimes, although I think he becomes progressively more unhinged and evil. And as I said in my previous video, of the group, Shane was the most fallen of the people in this fallen world. He was the closest to his bad side, to his evil side. I've been trying to think, you said Shane was the best character on the show. I think he's one of the best characters I've ever seen on television. I've been trying to think of characters who were better. I thought of a similar character on Lost, Sawyer, who moved between good and evil, sort of, but he was nowhere near as complex as Shane. And the only examples I could think of, which will date me, I'm older than you, is on Oz, the character Ryan O'Reilly, who actually isn't good and evil. He's evil, but he's so devious, and conniving. He's a fantastic character. And then, sort of overlapping with that, and produced by the same guy, actually, Tom Fontana, Homicide: Life on the Street. There was a character on that program, Frank Pembleton, a detective. If you've never seen it, you should. He's fantastic, an amazing character, one of the best in television history. And many TV critics say that Archie Bunker from All in the Family, way back when, before you were born, I think, was perhaps television's greatest character. Anyhow, Shane is right up there. So I agree with you about Shane having to go. You say at one point he's not a bad guy. Come on now, he's a bad guy. By this episode, he's a bad guy with bad intentions. And he's becoming increasingly unhinged, right? In that scene with Randall in the shed, he's slapping himself. I mean, this is a guy who really is losing it substantially. And of course, we see that at the end of the episode where he goes full-blown homicidal on Rick. And you actually say an interesting thing in your review. You say, Shane has lost his humanity. And I agree. But remember how in my previous video I said, you're being too literal, I want to look at it symbolically and thematically? The reverse has happened now. Because when you say he's lost his humanity, that's clearly figurative, right? It's not literal. So now I'm going to go all literal on you. Shane also literally loses his humanity because he's turned into a zombie. He's no longer human. So this kind of underscores what I had to say about the previous episode. That is that the literal and the symbolic, or the thematic, the figurative, whatever you want to call it, really blend together well in the program, which is one of the things that makes its writing so good. I also agree with you about Laurie. I never got your hate for Laurie before this episode, but now I get it entirely. I think she was loathsome in this episode. When she goes to see Shane as he's building the platform to keep watch at the perimeter, when she comes to him and stands by the truck and starts to lay all this stuff on him, I couldn't help but feel she was in some way leading him on, that she was teasing him somehow, and I almost kind of suspected that something quasi-romantic, sexual something was going to happen there. And I remember thinking, uh-oh, where does this leave Rick? Of course, nothing ended up happening, but I think she planted some seeds there that really drove Shane to try to want to murder Rick. And a lot of your review was taken up with talking about how Rick's a bad leader, which I'll address in a minute, and how Shane wants to kill him in part to get rid of that weak leader and to regain his position of authority. I think that's true to an extent, obviously, but I think that it happened, that Shane went after Rick in this episode, on that night, really tells us that Laurie drove him to it in some way. I mean, not deliberately, of course, but I get your point now about Laurie. Okay. One thing that I really disagree with you about is not showing Randall's death. You thought that was a flaw in the show, or that it was confusing, and I would say, yes, it's confusing that we don't see what happens behind that tree, but it's really important that it be confused, and it's deliberate confusion that it causes. There's a sort of narrative technique known as deferred disclosure, which means basically putting off telling us all the facts about something. And this is a case of deferred disclosure. We don't know that Randall has been killed by Shane until later. And this is important for a couple of reasons. The main one is that if we know Randall's dead, we don't get the buildup of suspense when Shane takes everyone out to the woods at night to look for him. If we see Shane kill Randall, we know from the get-go that there's only one reason that Shane is taking these guys out there. It's to get rid of Rick. If, on the other hand, we had seen Shane just knock Randall out, let's say, we don't know. I mean, the sound he makes could have been, him hitting him with a tree branch or something, who knows, or his gun butt or something. But if we know that Randall is only knocked out, then we might say, okay, what Shane is really doing here is trying to engineer the killing of Randall, right? He's been pressing for the killing of Randall, as you make clear, but if we had seen him not kill Randall, we could say, okay, this makes sense. He let Randall free. He bashed his own face into a tree in order to set up the story that, oh, Randall overpowered me and escaped, and let's go kill him, which is what he wants. Of course, we learn as they move out into the forest, into the woods, that isn't what happened. If we know from the get-go that Randall is dead or Randall is alive, it ruins the suspense of that scene, I think. The last, or not the last point you made, but the last point I want to make is about your comments about Rick being stupid and a bad leader. You have a tendency to call characters stupid a lot when you disagree with them, which is fine. But I just want to defend him a little bit. The first thing you talked about, and you spent some time talking about this, is that Rick's decision to let Randall go is stupid. And on one level, I mean, if you're thinking logically, which is what you want him to do, then I agree. It's stupid for all the reasons you say. He's most likely going to find his group, and they're going to come back, and it's going to be mayhem and death. Not that there isn't enough of that already. I agree, logically, he should kill Randall. The problem is, though, remember what he says in this episode. He says, we're going to honor Dale by not doing this, by not killing Randall. We'll do it what Dale would have wanted us to do. In the last video of mine, I talked about how Dale represented this, sort of innocence. You called it idealism. Rick still wants to hang on to that a bit, I think. I don't think he can much longer, and perhaps Shane has, completely done him in. But yes, he uses his emotion there. But I think that's something that makes him a complex character. Perhaps he'll become as complex as Shane, but makes him a hero in our eyes, I think. He still wants to align himself with good. The second thing to say is just a bad leader. I don't think so. I think yes, there are glitches. Yes, there are big glitches. But at the beginning of the episode, he's the one marshaling the forces, right? He's the one assigning tasks to people, right? To make sure that they're protected. He sets up a perimeter. He very sensibly says, don't just drive the vehicles closer to the house. Make sure they're facing outwards so we can get away faster. So, he's using his brain still, and he is being a good leader. And another sign of his good leadership is that he takes Daryl as his deputy. Daryl has shown, almost since Merle was completely out of the picture, first of all, that he's a badass. Second of all, that he's ruthless, he can be kind, but he's very practical about what it is that they have to do as a group, right? He's very practical about it. So in that way, he's the perfect deputy to Rick. So if Rick, as you think, tends toward emotion a bit too much, Daryl ain't that guy. You might say that searching for Sophia, as long as he does, is about emotion. I think it is. But when it comes to killing folks, there's nothing emotional about Daryl. He's just into it. And I think that's about it. Again, you did a great review. This isn't meant to... it's not to say that my interpretation is right and yours is wrong. Although if I didn't think mine was right, I probably wouldn't make this video. But that's what I have to say. Would love to hear a reply from you and see if you think any of this makes sense. Have a great day.